With news that America's newly named Department of War is targeting Venezuela, a new chapter of US aggression is unfolding. And while the spotlight is on South America, it exposes deeper truths about the West's dealings in Africa and the changing global geopolitical landscape. In this video, we're going to explore ties between South America and Africa and why Africa's response could shape the future of the global South. If you're new here, my name is TJ, I'm Nigerian and British mixed, and on this channel, we talk about African geopolitics. So, I've talked before about how the United States deliberately uses terrorism as a weapon across Africa. There are all sorts of covert mechanisms and tactics that are used to fund terrorist groups, supply them with weapons, and even provide training. The goal is simple: destabilize any country that refuses to play ball with America's resource extraction agenda. Keep them weak, keep them divided, keep them dependent. And now we're watching the exact same playbook unfold in Venezuela. But instead of terrorists being the key destabilizing force, it's the drugs cartels. Right now, the US is sending F-35 fighter jets to Puerto Rico, claiming it's to combat these cartels. Sound familiar? Just replace drug cartels with terrorism, and you've got the exact same script they've been using from Mali to Somalia for decades. This time, it's not taking place in Africa or in the Middle East, which have been the most regular hunting grounds for US military interventions and regime change operations for decades. It's now happening much closer to home. But here's what most people miss. The shift isn't about Venezuela, it's actually revealing something massive about the changing global power structure that could completely transform Africa's position in the world. South America and Africa have a lot in common. The transatlantic slave trade created massive ethnic connections between the continents. Millions of Africans were forcibly taken to build the economies of the Americas. Today, over 100 million people of African descent live across Latin America, with Brazil alone having the largest population of African descendants outside of Africa itself. But these aren't just historical connections. In parts of Brazil, Yoruba, the tribal language from Nigeria, has been preserved for centuries. In Colombia, traditions like worshipping the Orisha, which are spiritual deities found and worshipped in West Africa, are still practiced. These were kept alive by enslaved Africans who maintained their spiritual connection to the continent despite brutal oppression. These crucial bridges are living proof of unbroken ties, and modern leaders are strengthening these connections. The Prime Minister of Barbados, Mia Mottley, has made numerous attempts to connect with Africa through trade and diplomacy. She was present at the opening of the Ethiopian Renaissance Dam just last week. She delivered a speech highlighting the importance of African diaspora cooperation. These efforts need to be encouraged, fostered, and celebrated. This shared history is why Africa and South America should have a lot of solidarity with each other. Both continents face similar imperial playbooks being executed against them. There is a document called the Monroe Doctrine, which was announced by President James Monroe in 1823. It's America's oldest foreign policy principle that basically states no geopolitical player is allowed to have a presence in the Western Hemisphere except the US. It's been the blueprint for American dominance in the Americas for over 200 years. And France has been running its own version called Francafrique across Africa. That's been since the 1960s. So when Gaddafi was galvanizing African leadership and threatening the US dollar by pushing for an African gold dinar currency, that is why he had to go. Africa exports 175 million tons of raw materials to France annually, while imports from France remain under 20 million tons. That's a 9-to-1 extraction ratio. The military side tells an even more revealing story. The US spends only $2 billion, 3% of its $700+ billion defense budget, on all African operations through AFRICOM. This supports about 6,000 personnel continent-wide, including 3,000 in Djibouti, 1,000 in West Africa, and 500 special forces operating in Somalia. Compare that with what's happening globally. US arms export grew 17% in 2014 to 2018 and 2019 to 2023, rising from 34% to 42% of total global arms exports. Direct commercial sales authorizations hit $208 billion in fiscal 2024, up 27% from the 157.5 billion in these same 5 companies: Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, Boeing, Northrop Grumman, and General Dynamics. These companies have been profiting from African conflicts for decades. These companies fund both Democrat and Republican candidates every single presidential election, ensuring bipartisan support regardless of whoever wins. In 2023, US defense companies made almost 1 trillion in sales, with 765 billion coming directly from government contracts. When Hamas attacked Israel, Lockheed Martin's stock jumped over 54%. The same pattern happens with African conflicts, just with less media attention. Africa accounts for only 4.3% of global arms imports, but arms transfers to the West have doubled 82% between 2010 to 2014 and 2020 to 2024 as security deteriorated. This isn't coincidence, it's the dependency model they use. The Sahel states tells this story perfectly. Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger experienced coups, ended French security partnerships, and dramatically increased military spending. Maybe the US government has taken a good look at the military and geopolitical status of China and Russia and decided it no longer has the capacity to maintain its policy of strategic provocation halfway around the world. It seems like America is somewhat retreating from global dominance because it simply can't afford to maintain it anymore. Having accepted that victory in Ukraine isn't realistic and that China encirclement is backfiring spectacularly, the US empire looks like it's deciding to cut its losses and focus closer to home, Venezuela. This is huge for Africa because it means the empire that spent decades destabilizing the continent is pulling back resources to focus on its own backyard. The signs suggest this shift just might be real. US arms exports to Africa dropped to just 4.6, while China and Russia, despite their own issues, still supply more weapons to the continent than America does. This could create opportunities for African sovereignty. While America focuses on Latin America, Africa might have unprecedented space to build its own system. The key is staying alert to what's developing. We should be watching South America closely. Countries like Venezuela, Bolivia, and Ecuador are resisting the same playbook that has been used against Africa for decades. Their strategies for maintaining sovereignty while under imperial pressure could offer valuable lessons. More importantly, there are real trade opportunities emerging. The 2025 Intra-Africa Trade Fair saw 48.3 billion in deals, proving Africans are ready to trade amongst themselves. But we should also be exploring trade with South American nations, especially the ones facing similar pressures. African exporters could find new markets there while learning from their resistance strategies. The African Continental Free Trade Agreement created a market of 1.3 billion people. But it also established something crucial: the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System. This allows trade using local African currencies, completely bypassing Western financial control. South American countries are developing similar systems. Here's what African businesses, diaspora, communities, and governments should be doing right now. Private sector players should explore partnerships with South American companies, especially in agriculture, manufacturing, and technology. Africa diaspora communities can build bridges, facilitate trade relationships, and share knowledge between the continents. Governments should be establishing direct diplomatic and economic ties with South American nations, learning from their resistance strategies while offering Africa's own experience. The same empire that carved up Africa in Berlin in 1884 is now stretched thin, trying to control multiple fronts. It isn't guaranteed success. It's a potential opening that requires smart action. Either Africa seizes this moment to build real sovereignty through continental integration and South-South cooperation, or it waits for the next imperial power to fill the vacuum. The American empire isn't ending by choice. It's ending because it can no longer afford global dominance. That means Africa's leverage could increase dramatically, but only if we act strategically while this window is open. I would love to know what you guys think about this out there. Please feel free to write your thoughts in the comments section. But if you have nothing to say, would it be too much for you to write the words, "Let's trade amongst ourselves"? It just lets me know that you watched the video to the end, you like the channel, you like what I'm doing, and you want me to continue. Thank you so much for joining me for this video today, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.